There's only 2 shiurim left. It's today and tomorrow. So, we're going to have to go through the inyanim b'chlolus. But the emphasis is it's Gnesi Yesedis, and it's a very geschmack in inyanim. So, yesterday we went through the Nekuda of Sifim Dalet Hey and really Vav. Now we're going to go through Zayen, where the Rebbe takes another shlav, and then it's a great chiddush, the pashtus. Just 1 second. What's the Nekuda? Till now, let's maybe step back and speak even more b'chlolos. Like somebody asked me, someone texted me, one of the Bachrim, what's the Nekuda from the mind? Like, where's the Rebbe want to go? So let's speak maybe a bit breiter outside of this Mamer, and then where do we place this Mamer? What are we doing over here? Bechlal is in Seder Shtalshalus, Nochmer. Bechlal and Chochmas HaKabbalah, what's Kabbalah or Pnimis HaTeira looking to do? In other words, if I want to be Magder, what's the message? It says dort der Welt, fahr dem was in this Gale Pnimis HaTeira, or says dort noch dem was in this Gale Pnimis HaTeira. What's the different cook? So obviously it's going to make a difference in the way I look at Teira and our mitzvahs. It's going to make a difference how I look at Neshama and a Yid, and there's a difference in how I look at the Eibishter. Now, how I look at the Eibishter is really ends up being 2 kilo neymar different, or maybe even opposite inyanim in a way. One inyan which we're constantly looking to say about the Eibishter is that he is more poshut than you think. Meaning, if you'll ask somebody with Achsidis, so he's going to say, "What's the Eibishter? The Eibishter is Echad. The Eibishter is even if we're going to learn lefi the way the Rambam learned a bissel Chachmas HaChakirah, so the Eibishter is poshut." But still, we're never going to come to the pshitis and achtas Hashem, the word of that he's hecher from the tzir of bligvul. He's not mugder in bligvul. All of these lashenes are new in Yanim, which when is galat through Teres HaKabbal, Pnimis HaTeira, Bepratis Teres HaChassidus. Another agenda or message of Chassidus, which is really a fakerta message in a way, is to say as punkt fakert. The Eibishter is more involved in the world than what seems at first glance. The way I would understand the pashtos is what's the yachas of the Eibishter to the Welt, is that the Eibishter made the world. The Eibishter is running the world. But the Eibishter is involved in the world. Fakert. The Eibishter is hecher from them. So there's more hashgacha pratis. There's more in hashgacha pratis gufa. It's in Zayen a different eifen, and Zayen broader terms. It's kelol more. There's and really, what we're saying is the emes every davar gashmi has a sheirish l'mayla, like we've discussed barichas in other places. In other words, what's Chassidus coming to say? Zwei fakerte Sachen. One thing Chassidus is coming to say, the Eibishter is more poshut than I think the Eibishter is yachid and meyuchid. And another thing is that the Eibishter is more mitzuyir. There's more of a yachas to Welt than at first glance. Now, how these two things work together is a separate discussion, which is not our Mamer. What we're saying in our Mamer is that these two inyanim is what it means when it says the lashon l'mayla adin ketz or l'mata adin tachlis. I'm saying these two things, which in pashut verter is says dovi atzilus, and atzilus is pashut and it's dovuk in the Eibishter, and biyah is not eir, dveikus, not fakert, it's bekeichach hagadol. It's the keich of the Eibishter to create. The Rebbe takes this in this Maimah a step further and shows how the inyan of Lamayla din Kates or Lamata din Tachlis, or what we're talking over here in the Sprach over here is eir and keich. The pshit is the dveikus and the Eibishter, atzilus, and the tzir and the gvul of the Eibishter kavyochel. These two inyanim are not separate inyanim. That's the point. These two inyanim are not separate. In other words, in every place I have both. It's not different I could have Zayen Atzilus also Lamata Adin Tachlis. I have Zayen Biyah L'mayla Adin Kitz. So this is what we're going to do over here now. In Siv Zayin, show what's pshat that in Biyah there's also the word of L'mayla Adin Kitz. This inyan of that the Eibishter is Pashat B'tachlis. But in order to do that, we're going to go a step further in the pshittus of the Eibishter from the way we were discussing it till now. And only after we have this higher pshittus could we return to say that this word is not only in Atzilus, also in Biyah. So this is the Kitzer, the program for tonight. What we want to understand is was can sein hecher und edeler more pashut than yesterday, and how this gufa in the most surprising way is going to be murgish afil in Biyah. Yeah. So let's begin with bringing a whole new sugya, which the Rabbi touches on over here. The way it comes in over here, it's kilo and the Arab, but this is like the flesh of the whole thing, which is in the end of Al-Mitid Amyuni Tafresh Samachei. It's already in Eratere and Yanim, that Mamer, which we're discussing, this Lahavani in Erin Seif. And it's also, you could find it in Ein Beis, there was in Tashan Lamet Beis, that everyone spoke about it, as the difference between the Pardes, the Ramak, and the Arizal. Okay. It's Yadua that the Ramak was the Rebbe of the Arizal. The Ramak was Megale and Masbir Pnimis HaTeireh in a way which was never done before. And anybody which opens a Pardes, you could see over there the Sprach is a Hasbara Sprach, is Masbir Shar, it's the Atzmus, it's the Kelim, it's Pasha Masbir, what's the Hechrich Fatzilis, how does that Spheres work, everything, Pasha Teyuan Tikkun, all in Yonim, Akudim, Nukudim, Brudim, that Pasha the Hasbara in Yonim begins in Pardes. But still, the Pardes is considered together with the Mukubalim Rishonim, even though he's not from the Rishonim, he's from the date of the Arizal. And the Arizal is a new tkuf in Kabbalah. And there's kama v'kama chiluk in between. The nekudas hachiluk, which is the reason for all the chilukim, is that the Arizal at megala given the inyan hatzimtzum. That is the chiddush. So the Pardes didn't know about the tzimtzum, and the Arizal did. Was heißt? The way the Arizal spoke, Eiris come from the Eibishter. So Eir is Dovuk. What's a touch Eir in Sof? Eir is a Hemshech. It's a Da Atzmus and it's da Eir. Even if you're not machalik between Atzmus and Eir. Eir is, so what's the Eir is Datzilis? They come from Eir in Sof. Ad Kedei Kach, there's a Lashon, that's Ilavalu. It's coming from him. Masha'en Kein, the Arizal says there's Eibishter and there's Atzilis. There's what we call Atzmus. Then in order for Atzilis to happen, there has to be a break, which is the Tzimtzum, a Diluk, Be'en Arich. And therefore, the Yachas of Atzmus to Atzilis is al derech the Yachas of Atzilis to the Welt. Atzilis to Welt is Yashmeayin. It's al derech that we say, Atzmus to Atzilis is also Yashmeayin. Because it goes through the Diluk of the Tzimtzum. Now, because of that, Kumteis, as the Arizal, the Retveg, and the Eibishter, in the Eifen, Be'en Arech Mu Pashut. The way the Ramak is learning what's Eibishter, what's Atzmus, it has it's kilo, there's a Hemshech, there's a Yachas from Atzmus there's a Yachas of Atzmus to Atzilus. Masha'enkin, the way the Arizal learns, because the Eibishter is so pashut, okay now, what's the inyan of Kabbalah? To be Megal. as the Eibishter is the Mailadin Kates, the Eibishter is Pashut B'Tachlis HaPshitis, so the Arizal is taking this another step. It's not just Pashut, the way I understood Pshitis till now, that he's not Metzuyer in Kelim, he's not even Be'erech to be possible to be Metzuyer in Kelim. He's not even the Makir for Eris. From him, it's not just there's no Kelim, there's no Eris, there's no Shaykhis. In order for them to be able to be Atzilus, there has to be a jump, which is the Tzimtzum. So what did we gain from the Tzimtzum? What's the pashtus, the message, the point? To tell us, as the Eibishter is more pashut than I understood till now. It's not Ilavol, it's Yeshmiah. But here comes a famous problem. And this is the problem which the Tzemach Tzedek brings up in the Mamer in Lahavin in Yonir in Sof. And in Samachei it's brought out by Arucha, very nice, that there's l'chura stira in the Ramak. Lafi this mahalach, which we're learning about pashtus, as the Arizal is making a diluk, and the Ramak is saying that there's ilavol, there's epsayachas. Lafi zevol gedaft oiskumen, that the Ramak should say the Atzilus and the Eibishter are keilu close, they're not bein arech. If we're using the Lashon Ilavol. Lepel, there's a Lashon of the Ramak where he says, Yesem Masha Ein Arech, Atzilus Legabi Biyah, it's Ein Arech, Akeser Legabi, the world, is Ein Arech, Atzmus Legabi Akeser. In the Sprach of Chassidus, we use the Lashon Atzilus. In other words, he's saying is, if I'm going to compare Atzilus or Keser, what's it closer to? Is it closer to the world? Or is it closer to the Eibishter, to Atzmus? I'm going to say that Atzilus is closer to the world. So there's the Eibishter, and Atzilus, and the world, are Be'erech Zalazeh, biyachas to the Inarech to him. Which L'chura doesn't make sense. Lefi the Ramak, we don't have the union of Tzimtzum. How could he say that it's Yeseh ben Arech? Fakert. Atzilus to be Keser Atzilus to be is doch sicher with a diluk. The parsa. It's a jump. It's Yeshmein. That's not a discussion. So if his yachas to his mocker is an even of Ilav Alul, so how could Ilav Alul be further Yeseh ben Arech than the yachas of Yeshmein? Something's not adding up over here. So therefore, we have to say that we are going to learn the Ramak Edeler, and we're going to learn the Arizal even Edeler. Is the Eifen how it works is like this. What's the Eifen is going to be Azay. What's the Yachas lefi the Ramak we're saying is, we're not saying Chas v'Sholem that Atzilus and Biyah, let me just say it a bissel b'signa nacher. I'm configuring. Lefi the Ramak, he says Yeser Masha'en Arech, the Atzmus to Atzilus and the Atzilus to Biyah. It's Yeser Ben Arech. Very good. Aber Sof, what's closer to Erin Sof? Atzilus or Biyah? Kumuvan Atzilus. Why is that? Because he doesn't say the Tzimtzum. What does the Tzimtzum do? The Atzilus and Biyah, it's not just the Taiches. There's further from Atzmus to Atzilus, nor it's B'Shavim Mamish. Atzilus and Biyah, and even Keser Atzilus, that's really the Lashon of the Ramak, is B'Shavim Mamish to Biyah when it comes to Atzmus. And that's the Chiddush of the Arizal. So what's the Arizal coming to be Mechadish? Anaya Vort. A new derher in the Pshittas of the Eibishter, even more than the Ramak, which is even more than everything we learned yesterday. Lass uns das abteitschen. yesterday we went through Kama v'Kama Madregas in Eir. So there's the way Eir is, feels insignificant. There's the way he says, I need Moir. It's impossible for me to without. There's the way he says, there's Norda Moir. There's nothing besides. If you look at me, you can only see Moir. And the Noch is done Noch Hecher, that he looks at himself the way Moir looks at. Now, it's the Lome Fragen, wie guckt Moir auf Eir? So we say, Moir is going to tell you, as Eir is nicht kein Sach, Eir is gar nicht. Okay. That's Mele, Eir is going to have that derher gufa because of his dveikus. He's going to be able to derher, not just how he perceives his yachas to Moir, he's going to look at himself the way Moir looks at. But even at this point, if we'll ask Moir, what's your opinion about Eir, and what's your opinion about Nivroi? I'll tell you what says. Come on, Eir is bottle. Eir is megalami. Eir is garnished. Eir is nicht kein Sach. There's no taken, there's no inni. Aber obviously, even if we're going to say the sprachas, leizau inyan hamor mashanim tzam menu Eir. Very good. Aber sof, there's such a inni in you. There's a value in Eir. Biyachas to mechuiva metzias is Eir akol metzias nimtza. Biyachas to Welt, I'll say, what's Eir? Eir is not metzias nimtza. Eir is a keli from built in metzias nimtza. Eir is megala mechuiva metzias. In the Lashon of Tzarku Peches, he says, it's neither metziuse and not mohose. So, what says? The metzias of Eir is no good. Aber sof, Eir is in ganzen bottle. So even biyachas, even when we're talking this level of bittul, in other words, bringing out this pshittus of the Eibishter, that there's nothing, that there is nothing, no tzir, there's no inyan, which is tefes mocking by him because he's legamre posher. The Eibishter as a dereheben, we managed to lift the Eibishter so high that Eir is nicht kein Zach, aber it says does Eir is nicht kein Zach, and then he's going to say Nivra is nicht kein Zach, is even low. So, in other words, could yesterday's Havana be said by the Ramak? Yes. Even the Ramak's going to say that. And that's the touch. In other words, he's going to tell you that what's further? Nivra von Eir of Atzilus, or Nivra from Eir Bichlal, or Eir from the Eibishter. So the Ramak will tell you, obviously, Eir is much further. It's in ganzen bottle. That's touch. He's nothing. That's the way Moir looks at Eir. But it's going to be true that Nivra is even further. So Nivra is further from the Eibishter than the Chesed Atzilus is from the Eibishter. Kommt Itzter. The Arizal, and the Arizal says a new word. No, the Beshove Mamish. The Take Beshove. Says though, I think Rabbi Elu says over here in Samche, it's the angenommen way if you touched up as Rabbi Parich. It's doch verschiedene Nuschos. Aber man sagt, Rabbi Parich said as who was Mekar of him to Chassidus is Reb Zalman Zezmer. And this Reb Zalman Zezmer, he says, I am be'en areich to Reb Zalman Zezmer. Was heißt, mir und Akatz sind im Beshove to Reb Zalman. He says, what's the touch I and Akat and Beshove? It's not the touch. Azay wie Akatz ist zu mir bin ich zu Reb Zalman, nor mir und Akatz sind im Beshove biachas to Reb Zalman. Then he said, and the noch is da Akatz und mir und Reb Zalman sind im Beshove biachas zu der Rebbe. Und es ist nicht der touch. Ich bin zu Reb Zalman, ist Reb Zalman zu der Rebbe, nor ich und Akatz und Reb Zalman sind im Beshove biachas zu der Rebbe. What's he being shalal over here? He's saying nishli vishitas aramak, not vishitas arizal. That's what we're saying. That my bittul is in other words, once there's a musig of the Rebbe, so I'm be'ena reich to Reb Zalman, and it's take it's a ena reich that biyachas to him the cat is and me b'shav mamish. That's what he said. But still, once we introduce the musig of Rebbe, is the greste chsidim with the need, it's als b'shav. Gerade is interessant, and this is take mamish. It's an interesting thing. In Pelach Harimim, the Rabbi writes that he heard from Reb Zalman Zezmer as was is the chiddush from the Arizal, this Inyan, the way it's nicht in Metzias, the yachas of Welt to the Eibishter is the same yachas of Atzilus to the Eibishter. In other words, I remember Punkt the Lashon, but that's basically the thing. So it's this word which we're saying over here. The Rabbi Hillel says it b'shem Reb Zalman. So it's like it's a shtickle zustel, and so it's nothing to do with the other. We're talking about the yachas to the Rebbe, but it's in other words, b'chsidim hat man übergegeben der Wort, which the Tzemach Tzedek writes in Eira Tere Yonim. Be'emes, he heard it, and if I'm not mistaken, we're saying over there Reb Zalman Zezmer is saying it b'shem the Alter Rebbe. So it's be'emes, it's a old word. This yisod. So l'sikum, what's the nekuda? As lefia Arizal. So nicht the Taichis as Atzilus more vernehmlich ken Ort bejachas to which like we're saying till now an gufa ken das der Herren. Now we're saying a different word. Bejachas to more. How does more look at It's the same as Nivroy. It's the same. Now, just like yesterday, we said that mitzad adveikus of in more. Ken der Herren, was wie Moir guckt auf him. So we're going to say the same thing now. So what it says in Samachei, and this is already the Rebbe's Chiddush, what it says in Samachei, that Atzmus looks at of Atzilus, as in ganzen nicht kein Sach, and it's mamish like in Nivra B'Shavim mamish. Sagt der Rebbe mit Zadat Veikus of Moir, can das der Herren. So should also have this in it. So the bittul of it has that goof. So is saying also this message, which is a big chiddush. I mean, in Cheshbon, l'churu, you can make the Cheshbon yourself. With Tzachaka, what did the Rebbe do? He stellt zu the Yesod of Tzadik Daled and Ein Beis, where it says over there that der guckt auf sich wie Moir guckt auf sich. And we said, how's the real truth? How does Moir look at me? The way it says in Samachei is that I'm bechlal nishdo. So the Rebbe just made the cheshbon say bazei. So could look at himself the way this word as in ganzen shkemitzis. And that's the taich, the cook of Keser. The Ramak's talking about Keser, the Loshans. Now, Kumtais, let's just be mesakim from the beginning of the Mamer. It's always important to get the full picture. What's the difference between Atzilus and Biyah? In other words, if I want to describe the Eir of the Eibishter, the Keich HaGvul of the Eibishter, the way the Eibishter is a Chacham and a Chazda. So those Gufa can be masber sein in Kama v'Kama Eifan. In other words, the Yisod is going to be always as Chacham and Chazdan is Dovuk and Biyah is Nifrit. Aber b'zeh Gufa, what does it mean Dovuk? So we started off with saying is Dovuk, that can't be separated because Moir identifies with Eir. That's the way we learn in Siv Beis. In Siv Gimel, we said Tifer, it's because Eir in Yonei is, what's the Geder of this, of Atzilus, what's Chacham and Chazdam, in Yonei is Lachatchila, Dos. He doesn't have any other Indian. Just like a Guf can't exist without the Nefesh, my whole Indian is that. Then we said even more than that. It's not just this is my whole inyan. Nor melchatchila is as a sort zach, which is dovuk. Guf, I don't say is dovuk. This is, what's the touch is dovuk? Seherzich on inem, the bittul, the enin mulvade of atzmus herzich on inem. So in Atzilus, we have kilo neymar, because dovuk, the kav is chazer v'heir. It's dovuk to atzmus, so therefore in there, you could already hear this in. Then we want a shlav weiter. Not just is he dovuk, in yoni, I could look at myself the way atzmus looks at me. That's sifhei. And sivav. So what's Atzilus? Atzilus is das Elyon, saying the truth. So mel inem herzach son. Now we're saying Nochmer. The real truth is, as the Moir looks at Welt, saying Anznish Kemetziis, as Atzilus and Biyah B'Shove, Atzilus says also that because of Dveikus. So that's the real taich when I say, as Atzilus is Yichud Eilah, Atzilus is Das Elyon. What's the taich is Das Elyon? He's the day of Atzmus, Taka Atzmus. Not just Das Elyon Biyachas to Biyah. He says what Atzmus says. Kol Zeh is before the bomb that the Rebbe is putting down in this sif. Over here, the Rebbe is saying a new word. This I could hear in Atzilus, not in Biyah. Zok the Rebbe name. We're talking over here, the Ramak said Keser, Seviv. Seviv exists, Zayen Atzilus and Zayen Biyah. We know that the real Metzias of Allah Elam is Seviv. The Yesh Me'ayin of Seviv is in Biyah. You could even, and first of all, he is everywhere. Like the truth is, but there's also, I could have a kilo nemer, a taste of Seviv in Biyah. The way we know, you could have a Nes. So what's a Nes? A Nes is saying, Nicht begidre ateva. Not just not begidre ateva, not begidre sharshei ateva. Not begidre any gvul. Bligvul. It's a gather of Eibishter. Now the pashtus, the way I understood the Nes till now is, what is it? It's a gili of Bligvul. It's a gili of Eir. Lefi, the way we're saying now is, what's Eir? Eir says, doch, wie Moir guckt auf him. Not just Moir. The way Atzmus looks at him, that he is B'shavim Mamish to Biyah, that word, Herzach on in there. So when Seviv is in his gal in Biyah, that's his message. Kumteis, as this word will Maila indicates, till we reach now a point in talking about Atzmus, Dafke Lefnei, only which we could only say through Tzimtzum. In other words, such a kind of bittul of all Gedorim of Tziyur, even the Inyan Ha'er, is in Ganzen B'Shavim. This word, Herzichon in Biyah. So that's the title, Maila Adinkeit, is true on every level. It's true in Livnei HaTzimtzum. The Livnei HaTzimtzum, Herzichon La'achar HaTzimtzum and Atzilus, and this Gufa Herzichechaton, Afil in Biyah. Which is a meritic word. In Biyah, a Yid could derher as Atzilus and Biyah B'Shav. It sounds like ridiculous. Says, what's the taich? The Halavai in Biyah should be able to derher as Atzilus is Be'en HaRechtem. Over here we're saying, no, you're going to derher as Atzilus and Biyah B'Shav Biyachas Ta'atzmus. That's going to be the message of a Nes. Or of any Inyan of Seviv, any Gilead Seviv, or of the Chazakim Kimi Baram. Every time I'll see Seviv, because Seviv is Davuk. So that's why he's being Megal. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Das ist der Inyan. Es ist a tiefe Inyan. But basically, if we say in one word, the Rebbe was just mechaber over here, the beer of Samach Hey, which is about Vuste Inyan, to the beer of what we call Miyam Shmini Atzeres Einvav. These two inyanim together make up a naya word. Then we took a shlav weiter, we connected it to a third bavusta vort, as seviv is everywhere, even in Biyah. So Mamela, if that's true Lamaila, it's also true Lamata. Kumtes Lamaila din case is true on every level. And Lefiza, just the drush, Taich the Rebbe, that's why it says Lamaila double losh. Why Lamaila? Say Lamaila din case. Why Lamaila din case? Because there's Kama Mailas on every level. You have this in. Okay. Yeah, I think this will be the. We'll stop over here. Tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem, we're gonna do the last sikum on this Mamer. This is Ba'emes, it's mamish. This is sikumim. We're Pasha going through the inyanim, the Zayen. It's just the way it says it, and we're skipping a lot of inyanim, but we said it's gonna have to be in 5 shiurim. So tomorrow we're gonna finish the Mamer, and we'll also deal a bit with the drush, with the Varta Mashiach, which is the Nekuda of the Mamer.